first Saratoga AGK chapter program of the first one of 2023 with Dave Govatski. I wanted to, if you'd like to learn more about the AGK, please visit our website at agk.org. We always welcome your participation, and our chapter is always looking for volunteers. Contact our chapter if interested in helping in any way. And once I will put the information, I'm hoping to put the information in chat for people. So we decided to present January's program via Zoom due to the possibility of weather, etc., making in-person event maybe tricky. But all further programs this year will be in person in the Dutcher Room at the library. Our next chapter event is our 6th annual hosting of the Banff Film Festival at the Charles R. Wood Theatre in Glens Falls on Friday, Saturday and Sunday, February 3rd to 5th. At this moment, there are a few tickets left for Friday and quite a few for Sunday, but Saturday is sold out. We would love to see you there for an entertaining evening of short films celebrating mountain culture. Visit the Wood Theatre website for tickets. There are also virtual screening options, and visit our chapter website, adk-gfs.org, for more info. Our next library program will be on March 15th with chapter members Jack and Lenore Reber presenting their photographic program entitled Circling the Four Corners area of the US. Also, I'd like to announce that the AGK Glens Falls Saratoga chapter is still accepting applications for scholarships for DEC overnight camps, Pack Forest and Camp Colby, as well as our own Teen Trails program. Camps are for ages 11 to 17. Contact Kim Brown for applications at education@adk-gfs.org, and hopefully we'll put that in the chat as well. So before I hand it over to Dave, a big thank you to Jen Ferris, fellow hiker, chapter member, and assistant director of Saratoga Library for her invaluable assistance, and also the library for the use of their facilities. So now I am going to hand it back over to Dave for tonight's presentation.
Thank you, Anne, and thank you, Jennifer, from the Saratoga Library, and ADK members and guests tonight. I'm pleased to be able to talk about one of the most spectacular national parks in the world, not just North America. Katmai National Park is a place that I had a chance to visit 3 years ago. I'm retired from the U.S. Forest Service, and I've been working as a naturalist. I've been working in Alaska as an expedition ship naturalist, and this was a trip that I made after finishing up for the summer to see the Bears of Katmai, and that's what I'll be talking about tonight. And I'll also be talking about some other places in Alaska where you might be able to see bears. Anne, is my volume okay?
The volume sounds great.
Okay, let's go ahead and we'll go ahead and get started. Some of you may have been to Katmai already, and for those that haven't and you're potentially interested in going, you have to get to Anchorage. And getting to Alaska Airlines flies just about to any airport in Alaska. Out of New York, out of Newark, out of Boston, if you're in that area, up to Anchorage. So it's 300 miles, air miles, to King Salmon, which is a small king salmon fishing community of about 600 people on the Alaska Peninsula. It is then from there, where you would get dropped off at the airport, it's 30 miles, roughly 30 miles to Katmai National Park in Naknek Lake, where you have to take a float plane. There's no foot access. There's no roads going into Katmai National Park from King Salmon. One interesting thing about this area on this map, I don't know if you can see my cursor here, there's another national park in between Anchorage and King Salmon. It's called Lake Clark National Park. It's another great place to see bears. And again, one of my other favorite national parks. And then in the bottom left corner is Bristol Bay. This is the salmon rearing area for much of North America. It's some of the best salmon fishing around. It's where we get a lot of our salmon in our grocery stores and elsewhere. It's also the site of a proposed gold mine called Pebble Mine. You may have heard about that. And we think that that has been defeated now. So let's move on here just to give you a picture. Katmai National Park in green is about 4 million acres in size. It's huge. Designated as a national monument in 1918. There's a couple of national wildlife refuges nearby. One of them is called Betcheroff. Another is Kodiak National Wildlife Refuge, where there's some really special subspecies of the brown bear that lives. It's been isolated for about 5,000 years. So these bears are even bigger than the ones you see at Katmai. So just a few facts about Katmai. I mentioned that it's 4 million acres in size. There's 7 active volcanoes, 18 volcanoes in total. It's famous because of its Valley of the 10,000 Smokes. This is the reason it was created as a geological wonder piece from the 1912 Novarupta eruption. Became a national park in 1980. And it has the world's largest protected brown bear population. There's about 2,200 brown bears that live there. In large part, it's due to this sockeye salmon run that is found there. There's also king salmon, of course, and pink salmon and silver salmon in the area. And fishing for rainbow trout is really quite popular too. 500 miles of coastline. There's moose, wolf, lynx, wolverine. And your best time to visit, you're saying, what happened to August? Well, some of the species of salmon run in July and again in September, and August actually tends to be pretty quiet, although there is a salmon run. But I think July is probably the busiest time of the year to go. To get there, you need to fly. You can actually fly from Anchorage all the way to Naknek Lake, but I would suggest flying from King Salmon and potentially staying in King Salmon overnight. This is one of the typical float planes. They use de Havilland, the Canadian aircraft called a Beaver or an Otter. And these float planes are quite comfortable, and the crew is there to help you get on and off. Really a fun voyage. The pilot asked if anyone would be interested in sitting in the co-pilot seat, and I said sure. And it was funny. He asked me where I was from, and I told him. He says, "No kidding, I'm from there too." I didn't know the guy, but apparently he was a logger and then decided to become a pilot and moved to Alaska. I said, "Yeah, if I was younger, I would definitely be living in Alaska too, because it's just an amazing place." This is what it looks like. It's only about a 35-minute flight in from King Salmon to Brook's camp as you're flying in from the air. Now, these trees here, these are Sitka spruce, and unfortunately, these have died due to a spruce beetle infestation. It's a natural insect that's found there. In some years, they have some pretty bad infestations, but the regeneration is coming up in between. And it will be up there. But this is Brooks River. This is Naknek Lakes. And the camp is right here. And when you fly in, we're flying in, and you could see about a dozen bears right in the river as we were coming in. And you land on Naknek Lake. This is where the river is. You can see these beautiful mountains in the background. The lake is 40 miles long and 8 miles wide. So the first thing you do when you get there, you see this sign that says Brooks Camp, Katmai National Park and Preserve. And this is the original ranger station, and it's now the visitor center. It was built in 1955 with logs that were cut at the site and peeled. And it's a very nice visitor center. And the first thing you do before they let you go anywhere on the grounds is you have to take a 30-minute bear safety course, because they're there to protect the bears. well, and I guess indirectly to protect you from anything. So bear school is pretty neat. If you're interested, you can actually go to the national park website and look up Brooks Camp Bear School 101, and you can actually watch it. It's about a 10 or 15 minute video. It's quite interesting to learn about all the things you have to do. So it's definitely worth seeing, but you'll get it when you get there. And when you go to Brooks Camp, this is the dining room. This was built in the mid 1950s. Also, your luggage is brought up to this ramp here. This is the kitchen, and the dining room is here. So we'll just take a look at a little bit of the surroundings before we get there, and we'll give you a little bit of an idea on the price. And I know $850 per night is probably above your price range, but when you figure that's for 4 people, so it's just a little over $200 a night. And there's other ways you can go there. You can camp there for free if you're interested too, and I'll talk about that later. But if you get a room, share it with your family or friends. There's a bathroom there, and it's really quite comfortable. And of course, the surroundings are just gorgeous. So I checked out the prices for last year, what breakfast would cost, and lunch and dinner. And dinner is $40, but that's not much different than what you would pay in an ordinary restaurant. And it's all you can eat, and food is really good. Of course, they have a lot of salmon and fish and things like that. That's my wife smiling in the background there. She really enjoyed it too. So what people mainly come to Katmai for is to see the bears. And it's really a fish story. And it's about these sockeye salmon and some other species of salmon that are going to spawn. They want to go upstream. They're coming in from Bristol Bay. They're going up the Naknek River, about 30 miles through the lake, and then up Brooks River through this waterfall. It's about 8 feet high. They're trying to get to Brooks Lake, which is a few miles beyond the falls. And so that's what they're doing. And when you're there, it just looks like you could walk across the river. There are so many spawning salmon. As you can see why they call them greenheads occasionally here, but these are spawning sockeye salmon. And they're just everywhere. You're looking down in the water. And so the bears are pretty comfortable out here looking. And one of the first things you do, you walk out to the river along a trail and you look around. You may see 12, 15, 20, 25 bears in your field of vision. You can't get, close. You don't want to get close. And there's a number of safety things. You cannot have any food with you. You can't have toothpaste carried on you. You can't even have gum. They don't want you to have any interactions with the bears. But frankly, the bears are really interested in the salmon and less in eating you. In their entire history, no one has been attacked by bears at Brooks Camp or certainly killed. So this is a fairly large male brown bear. This is 900 pounds plus, walking down the trail. Yeah, one of the things that you'll learn out there is there's park rangers that are out there that are monitoring the situation, and some of them are specially trained in dealing with bears, is that if there's bears that are coming up, you have to move off the trail. Obviously, they have the right of way on the trails, but generally they'll just go beyond you, and you just let them go on their way. But the key things about learning about a brown bear, and I'll spend a little bit of time on that, is that, well, for one thing, they have huge claws. They're like 2 to 5 inches long, but proportionally, these ears are very, very small. They have very small eyes too. They have a hump, which is really muscle behind their neck. And they have a face that's kind of a dish shaped face, as opposed to a straight line with a bear, and proportionally their eyes look really, really small. And let's take a look at black bears. And for one thing, there's no black bears at Katmai. They would not last very long. I mean, the black bears in Alaska, typically a big one is going to be about 300 pounds, whereas a big brown bear is going to be 900, 1,000 pounds. And so they just aren't found there. So the thing about, you can't trust the color of the bears, because brown bears can be black and black bears can be brown. They can be cinnamon, they can be rust colored. And in British Columbia, there's actually a white phase. They're called Kermode bear or spirit bear, and those are black bears. If you look at the ears, you can see they're kind of big and pointed here. You can't see the claws in this picture here, but the rump typically is much higher than the shoulders are. I mentioned the ears are prominent. When you look at the brown bears, the colors can be blonde all the way to black. Ears and eyes are proportionally small. And I think I've pretty well covered the description on that. Sometimes you'll have a grizzled appearance on them. And these really are grizzly bears. So this is what's called a yearling, and this not the cub of the year. So this would actually be the second year of this bear's existence here. This one is smiling for us, showing its teeth. And here we see a bunch of California gulls and a brown bear that's actually quite black. And take a look at that noticeable hump right over here. That's all muscle. And they're really, really quite strong. So just a couple of key differences about brown and grizzly bears. People often ask me that as I'm leading trips, and I do trips in Southeast Alaska for a cruise company, a small cruise company from France. And also I do interior trips. The difference is really arbitrary between the brown and the grizzly bears. It's really mainly on diet. Brown bears, which is also called Ursus arctos, they have access to coastal marine food resources and salmon. They love to eat seals. They love to eat clams, things like that. But salmon are the big things. And so these are high calorie items. And so they can get to be really big. Now, you go in the interior, such as at Denali National Park, this is considered to be a subspecies, Ursus arctos horribilis. Those are inland. They have a different diet. I mean, bears typically are what are called omnivores. They eat fruits, meat, vegetables, fish, whatever they can get at. And particularly the interior grizzly bears, they eat a lot of vegetable matter. So they can be typically 300 pounds. And that's about it there. But at Katmai, a lot of the males, which typically are about 30% heavier than the females, are at about 1,000 pounds. So, as I said, the bears congregate at Brooks Falls because of the salmon run, and they mate in June. The adults, to be sexually mature, it requires about 5 to 6 years, and the subadults, 2.5 years old to 5 years of age. And the cubs, whether it's a polar bear or a brown bear, they're only a pound or less at birth, and they grow really, really fast. So cubs have to stay with their mother for 2.5 years, but when it comes to the third summer, the sows, that their females are called sows, are ready to breed again, and they're forced out, sometimes not very happily. So let's take a quick look at the range of the brown bear. As you can see, it goes all the way up into the Chukchi Sea, the Beaufort Sea, the Arctic Ocean up here. And there's just a few places, St. Lawrence Island, the Pribilof Islands here, and the outer Aleutian Range doesn't have it. And then in Southeast Alaska on some of these islands here, they're black bears that are found there. But brown bears are typically found, throughout Alaska. This is Kodiak Island, and this is where Katmai is, where my cursor is. A couple of other things about the bears and the salmon. These adult male bears can eat up to 80 to 90 pounds of salmon a day. Of course, they're only around, say, 5 or 6 months of the year. So the rest of the time they're in that deep sleep, that hibernation phase. And so they have to gain all of that weight. And fortunately, they have the salmon there to gain that 400 pounds or so during the summer. And so they're eating a tremendous amount of food. And I can tell you they eat a lot of food because I inadvertently stepped in a pile of bear poop that was about 10 inches high. And it was fish. And my boots definitely did not enjoy that experience, but I should have been watching where I was walking. Anyways, the Brooks River is where the cubs learn their survival skills. And the number one rule for the cubs is stay away from older bears, particularly males, because males will kill cubs. They will kill other bears and eat them. So you really want to be careful if you're the mother and the cubs. So they have different techniques for fishing. They've got a dash and grab, and that's typically what the cubs do. They'll see a fish and they'll run in. Some of them will snorkel. They'll keep their eyes and muzzle under the water, but the ears, they want to be able to hear what's going on. And then sometimes they just stand and wait or sit and wait. And sometimes they dive. They'll go down 10 feet in the water. So let's take a look. Oh, incidentally, they're in the summertime, starting around June 1st, they have live wildlife cams that are pointing on Brooks Falls. So if you can't go this year and you want to go in the future, just take a look at those bear cams. You might get glued to the scene of just seeing these bears. So some of these bears have found the best place. The salmon are essentially trying to leap up 6 to 8 foot high waterfall here, and the bears are there ready to snatch them out of the air. And there's a trail that you take. It's about a half a mile that you have to walk. Some of it is on a boardwalk where you're kind of fenced in, but some of it you have to walk in the forest, and occasionally there's bears coming the other way. So here's what the boardwalk looks like. It's a raised boardwalk, and you have to go through a gate essentially, and you have to securely lock it. It basically closes on its own. So you don't want to have bears coming on that boardwalk with you. And then you get out to viewing platforms. There's a lower falls. This is the upper falls here, and then there's the lower falls that you can stay. And it'll hold about 40 people. And it's just an amazing experience. You just sit there mesmerized looking at these bears catching fish. And then there's bald eagles flying over. There's ducks and gulls and other species. But there's, this constant parade of bears that are coming through. And this is the viewing platform below the falls. And so, as you can see, this was September. There's a lot of what's called Kenai paper birch that's turning golden in the autumn, and beautiful time of the year to be there. So these subadults, these are 2.5 to 5 years old, roughly. They are very cautious because they are still growing in size, and they're always looking out for these adult males. So they don't get the prime spots at the waterfall. So they may have to take a secondary spot and just kind of sneak in. Here's one of my favorite bears, and this bear's still around. The females can live up to 30 years. I think the record's 36, males about 24. She had 2 cubs of her own, and she actually adopted a third cub that was an orphan. So I have to give her credit for that. And so she's one of my favorites. And Otis, another one, they have what's called Fat Bear Week. And in September where you can actually get into this lottery. It's like a, basketball or football type of a lottery thing. And you can decide who is your favorite bear. And I think it was 747 that won this year. Kind of a neat thing. So here's another platform. It's an observation platform that also has a gate. And as you can see here, people have cameras and binoculars, and the weather can be quite nice. I see people in t-shirts here, but it can also be foggy and rainy too. So it's, typical Alaska weather. It can change fairly dramatically in the period of an hour or so. So you have to be prepared for rain and cool weather. And that viewing platform is to the right of the bridge. This is the new bridge that was put in. The previous one was not a raised bridge. It was essentially a trail that came out here. And then there was this other trail that you could take up. You have to walk up this road to the trail to the upper platforms. And so what was happening is that people would come here and there'd be a bear jam. There'd be, say, a bear that's sleeping over here, and you want to catch your seaplane flight out of there, but you can't go because the bear is there and you can't walk there. So the National Park Service got a special fund to build this raised platform to minimize those effects. So I always said you don't want to be on this side of the platform here if you have to get a flight in a few hours. So what we did was we stayed over here for about 2 hours, and then a bear came this way. So we had to go all the way over there, but it left after a while. So those are the things, it's nothing unusual in Alaska to have those bear jams. So the first year cub is called a Cub of the Year, or COY. And this one just came out of the water right below our viewing platform. Didn't even look at us, just kind of used the platform and got back in the water and went swimming away. These are amazing swimmers. And this one wasn't much bigger than a Chesapeake Bay retriever, for instance. So some of the techniques that they use, some of the bears, particularly the yearlings and some of the older bears, but they still aren't fully mature, they do what's called a dash and grab. They'll run out from shore, they'll see a salmon, and they'll just dive at it and grab it and head back to shore. Some of them will just sit there and wait, and they're constantly watching, and they'll pin a salmon down in the water, and they'll reach underneath and bite it and eat it. Some of them will snorkel, where they'll keep their ears above the water so they can hear what's going on. There's that distinctive hump again, as you can see here, but their eyes and muzzle are down below. And if they see a salmon, they'll go down and dive down to it. And here's a mom and a cub. And the cubs really have to learn fairly quickly that they have to get it on their own. Begging doesn't help. It's just so amazing to sit there and just watch these bears are going at it and enjoying their meals. 80 pounds of salmon. Can you imagine eating that? I can eat maybe 10 ounces of salmon, but I guess I'm not 900 pounds. But they sure enjoy it. And here's that dish-faced shape here of the face here. It just kind of comes in. Whereas a black bear, if you've seen black bears, it tends to be a straighter appearance. And look at those claws. Those are just amazing. And those ears are just so proportionally small for these. And young bears, typically they like to wrestle and play fight. They're not hurting each other. These are probably from the same litter of bears, and they're doing this. And you can hear them roaring when you're at the lodge, and you can hear them in the background that are just roaring and fighting and playing. And it's a good social interaction skill for them to be able to survive in the future. course, got milk. This one's on the shore here, and cub was just checking me out. These claws are really phenomenal. 2 to 5 inches long, and the pads on the feet, it's like a foot long. When you see the tracks and you can see those claws in the mud, something's out there. And I've been up in the Arctic National Wildlife Refuge, which is right on the edge of the Arctic, on a rafting trip for 10 days, and you'd see these grizzly bear tracks in the brush, and so you just have to be really, really careful around that. But around here, like I say, there's so much salmon. That's what the bears are really going after. Here's one that just came out. The mother just came out of the water. It's shaking the water off, and of course the cubs learn everything from the mother, and so it's shaking the water off itself. Bears can move really fast. There's no way you can outrun them. They can do 35 miles an hour in these short bursts. So one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to run if you happen to see even a black bear, but particularly a brown bear. It'll set off the predatory instinct, and it could come after you. So you may encounter cubs on the trail. This one was by our cabin. One time I came around, I was going out to the evening program. They have evening programs at the lodge. I came around the corner and there was an adult and 2 cubs, and said, okay, I think I'll back up. You just keep talking to them, and they're kind of used to humans. This bear was actually eating the grass. Like I say, they're omnivores. They love to eat grass too. There he is, eating grass. Amazing amount of fur on these animals. I have no idea where the mother was, but the view from your cabin, you can see the bears off in the water. You can hear them. They're roaring, and just amazing. You can sit on the deck and in a chair and just enjoy that. And you don't have to even go out to the viewing platform. But there are trails. There are some cultural sites there. There's been, evidence of humans that have been there for several thousand years. These are people that probably came over from Beringia, from Siberia, on crossing the land bridge, made their way down here, hunters and that. But here, this was a trail to one of the cultural sites. But I just happened to see this deposit of clay, and you can see where they clawed this out. And what bears do when they have clay is that if they have worms, because they do get tapeworms from the fish, and they will take the clay and eat it, and it basically helps get rid of those tapeworms. I guess it's some ways it's like we use, was it Pepto-Bismol or kaopectate, things like that. Other things that you might see out there, female spruce grouse right here. I'll talk about a bus trip that you can take out to the Valley of the 10,000 Smokes. I counted 44 spruce grouse on the way. I got to sit up front with the ranger. She asked if I would, she knew I was a birder, and if I would count the spruce grouse, and she had a survey, and she didn't want to do it herself because she wanted to talk about the area. So just amazing. So just about everything eats salmon out there, including the California gulls with their bubblegum pink legs that are in the river. You've got mallards that are eating salmon. I didn't know that they were fish eaters, but apparently they do. And you've got black-billed magpies, and you've got ravens and eagles that are out there that are feasting on the salmon. And one of my favorite animals is a short-tailed weasel. These are what we call in the wintertime, when they turn pretty much all white except for the tip of the tail, they're called ermine, or stoat is another name. And these are the short-tailed weasels. They don't have long-tailed weasels like we do here in the Adirondacks or the northern tier of states. They just have the short-tailed weasel. Cute little animal. They only weigh about 8 ounces, so they're really, really tiny, but they have to eat about a third of their weight in food every day. There's so much salmon around there that they have no problem finding that. So you'd have a good chance of seeing that. So there is a 24-mile long road that was built out there. How they got these specially modified school buses out to the middle of Katmai, I just don't know. But you can take a bus ride out there, and they're specially outfitted because you have to drive through 3 rivers. You have to ford the rivers. They're pretty high clearance, and they're special seats, bigger windows, quite comfortable. And you can take this trip out. Now, I'm interested in geology in addition to bears and birds and other things. So I really wanted to go and visit the Valley of the 10,000 Smokes. And so it just takes you through some beautiful country, through the Sitka spruce and the Lutz spruce, and to see the scenery. You saw tundra swans out here and just a variety of other wildlife as we were heading out. And we knew it was going to be a pretty interesting trip once we got to our starting point for the Valley of the 10,000 Smokes. And this is what's called a pyroclastic flow. And this is superheated rocks and debris that comes from the volcano that was called Novarupta or new eruption that came down and moved it at over 100 miles an hour. In some places, it's 700 feet thick. Where we were going, it was going to be about 400 feet thick. So it's an incredible thing. So the hiking trail down to the River Leith, you drop about 1,200 feet in elevation. Pretty gentle hike. I thought it was pretty easy walk, but it was nice to actually do some hiking as opposed to, sitting at the platforms and watching bears all day. That doesn't get old, but I do like to hike too, like many of you that are in the Adirondack Mountain Club. But along the way, you might see a fossil fumarole. This is a gas vent. This is essentially an extinct one, but you can see the different colors from the various gases that were out here. And there's no smokes that are coming up here. But okay, here's that pyroclastic flow I was telling you about. This, where we were, was 400 feet thick. You kind of have to imagine. I wish there was a scale here that you could actually see just how huge this is, but these walls were 400 feet thick. The river is actually cutting through it, and you can see how milky this is. So that's what's happening. But what's interesting, at the end of the flow, there were these fossils that date back to the Jurassic era, 100 million years ago, and you can go down and you can see these fossils along the stream. So just another bonus thing. So here we are, we're coming back up from our hike and wonderful day trip. And we came back to Naknek Lake, and the rocks there, a lot of them are what's called pumice. There's different kinds of pumice. This was what's called dacite. It's so light. There's a lot of air pockets in here and floats on water. So you can toss these stones in the lake and they float. So that's that pumice. And as you're walking along the beach, the cubs are often walking along there. They're in the camp area. They're always exploring. And in this case, I know there were the pilot and passengers who were waiting to head back to King Salmon, and they had to wait a couple hours while the bears were there. This was one of the people that worked at the lodge, and her name was Sue, and she was an Athabascan native Alaskan, and I got a chance to talk with her. She was really into fishing, and so of course, she's working there. I said, "What do you think of this Pebble Mine?" And even though she was working, she said, "I got to sit down and tell you all about it. I'm really against it," because she does salmon fishing and that. So, and she's, "I know I'm supposed to work, but I want to tell you." And I said, I'm totally opposed to it. I'm with you. So we were good. I gave her a good tip, and but quite interesting. And you can see how important salmon is to all of the people of Alaska and really all of the people of North America, because so much of our food production comes out of it, and the potential for that mine to the tailings to follow up the Bristol Bay is just way too high. Who needs another gold necklace anyways? So you can camp if you don't want to pay for, the $850 a night for 4 people. You can camp for free. Again, you have to sign up for a lottery. And again, you are in bear country. So you may not want to you may want to decide, just to pay for the meals. You can sign up for meals. And you can also get a shower. And when I was there, it was $8, and I think it's maybe $10 now. So if you're camping, you can do that. And there is an electric fence all the way around it, and it's tested with backup systems. So they don't want any bears going inside of there. So you just have to make sure you close the gate. So, it's often full in July if you want to go camping there, but you can make reservations and get in there. If you show up without reservations, you won't likely be able to find a place, and you may have to go into the backcountry on your own, and it has to be quite a distance from Brook's camp because of the active bears. If it's raining, you have a picnic table inside, you have fireplaces, and you can store your gear in here, and you can also put your food in here. So there's a gear cache and a food cache. You can't have any food or toothpaste or chewing gum or candy in your tent at night. Yeah, you don't want to, put a pound of bacon underneath your pillow at night for sure. And same thing with the food. You want to change your clothes if you've been cooking. You don't want to have any odors on your food. So you have this gear cache here that you can use. And there's some picnic areas also that we took one here to have our lunch one day when it was raining out, and those have those same electric fences. I actually didn't feel scared at any one particular point. So at this point, this is not the end, but it's getting close. I want to talk about some other places to go because the lodge is already booked. They have a lottery system at Brook's camp. It's full for 2023, and it's actually full for 2024. It's a lottery system that you have to use, but you can still do day trips. And I guess there's a couple of days you might be able to get in. So you'd have to check out the website for Brook's camp to see what might be available. So there's several other places, and Ketchikan is one of those areas that attracts a lot of people. It's a cruise ship stop. You can fly in there on Alaska Airlines, and so there's some really neat places. Some of the places that I've stopped and led trips in. Here's one, Annan Creek Wildlife Observatory. This is near Wrangell. It's about 30 miles from Ketchikan. There's multiple tours that are available from either Ketchikan or Wrangell. Well, they'll take you in and they'll guide you in. And this is, I think, the only place that I recall that you can see both brown and black bears during the salmon runs. And you could just look up Annan Creek. It's in the Tongass National Forest. Beautiful spot, about a half-mile walk in, go in with a guide. Sometimes they go by boat from Wrangell. Sometimes they fly in from Ketchikan. Check that out if you want to see, both species. And again, it's that beautiful rainforest that you're in. Herring Cove, I've been here a dozen times, at least maybe even more, sometimes twice a day, leading trips in the rainforest. And there happens to be a fish hatchery right next door. So there's a lot of bears, but only black bears that are found here. There's no brown bears here at this particular one. But Ketchikan, I think it's maybe 4 or 5 miles. We always had a shuttle that was set up. But you can take a taxi out there pretty easily. If you're going to be going in the backcountry, most of these places here, I just wanted to bring it up. Most of these viewing sites, there's train guides, park rangers, state park rangers that are there. They accompany you to go in. But if you're going to be going in bear country without a guide or a ranger, you want to get some bear spray. About $50 for a canister. Unfortunately, you cannot take it on airplanes. They've had some bad situations with a bear spray. It's a pepper spray going off in the cargo hold, so they don't allow you to do that. So, essentially you can donate it and to the local ranger station, or maybe you can even sell it to somebody that's looking to go on a trip. There's also special training courses. Because I was a naturalist and a guide, I had to have certified training in British Columbia and Alaska, just on risk management. Firearms, I've only in the interior of Alaska, so I'm not even going to get into having to do that. So some of the other places, you might go to Juneau, which is currently the capital of Alaska, Pack Creek bear viewing area. Again, another spectacular area. And it's easy to get out there with tour companies. You might only, go for a day. Koots Nuwu is the Tlingit name for Fortress of the Bears. So that's a great place to see some of these brown bears if you want to go up. And if you really want to splurge, there's one company. I've not worked for NatHab, but I know they're really good, and I know some of the people that work for them. Natural Habitat, they have a Alaska Bear Camp, and it's at Lake Clark National Park and Preserve. And it's an in-holding inside the national park, and they have these really fancy tents, and they have incredible guides, and you'll get a chance to see it. It's only $7,000 for a 6-day trip, so that's per person. So if you've got that kind of money, it would be a trip of a lifetime. And again, Lake Clark, in many ways, it's the equal of Katmai. Katmai, certainly you can see brown bears a lot easier, but at this bear camp, you will see the bears. Another place that has been popular, and there's also a lottery system, is called the McNeil River Wildlife Sanctuary and Preserve, and that's run by the Alaska Department of Fish and Game, and it's just north of Katmai National Park. It's about 250,000 acres in size, and that's a camping opportunity, and there's a lot of bears that are there, and people that go there, I've known some people that have gone there 20 years in a row, and they've been lucky to get in there and to do that. Chilkoot River, you can actually drive from downtown Saratoga to Haines, Alaska. There's a highway that goes there, and there's a river called the Chilkoot. There's also the Chilkat, but the Chilkoot is where the bears are. And if you go in August, there's usually a really good salmon run, and you can see brown bears there. And essentially, if you were planning to drive to Alaska, this is probably the one I would recommend going to. It's probably the easiest one that you can actually drive on this. It's about maybe a 10 or 12 mile road along the Chilkoot River, and you'll see brown bears along there. Not as many as at Brook Falls, but it's more of a budget option if you want to drive there from Saratoga. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is really the end. So thank you. And